Someone in your life has a name for you, not the one you think. In their head, you are not a friend, you are a function, and the terrifying part is not that they see you this way, it's that you train them to. By the end of this video, you will not be able to text that specific person the same way again, not because you will be told to cut them off, because you are about to see, in exact and uncomfortable detail, what they have been doing to you in daylight for years without once raising their voice. There is a version of you that exists only in other people's convenience, and you have never met it directly because it does its work while you are busy calling it kindness. It answers messages faster than it needs to. It says yes before the request has finished forming. It absorbs inconvenience so efficiently that the people around it never have to develop the muscle of asking twice. You built this version of yourself believing it would make you indispensable. What it actually made you was efficient to extract from. The difference between those two outcomes is the entire subject of what follows, and by the end, you will not be able to look at your own agreeableness the same way again. Exploitation, in its ordinary and most common form, does not look like exploitation. It does not arrive as a demand, a threat, or an obvious imbalance of power. It arrives dressed as ease. It is the friend who only calls when something has gone wrong in their life, the coworker who routes their unfinished work toward you without ever framing it as a request, the family member who treats your time as a resource that renews itself infinitely and therefore requires no conservation. None of these people, in most cases, think of themselves as users. They think of themselves as people with access to something reliable, and reliability, once established, stops being noticed as a gift and starts being assumed as a baseline. The moment something is assumed rather than appreciated, it has already been quietly converted from a relationship into a resource. Study the pattern of contact in any relationship where you suspect something is off, and you will usually find a simple asymmetry. The outreach correlates almost perfectly with need. A problem arises, and contact follows within the hour. The problem resolves, and the silence returns until the next one. This is not friendship operating normally, with its natural ebb and flow of closeness. This is a switch being flipped only when the circuit requires your specific function to complete. The uncomfortable truth is that you are not being thought of in these silences. You are being stored the way a tool is stored in a drawer, present in memory only at the exact moment it becomes useful again. A boundary is not a sentence. It is a demonstrated cost. Anyone can say the words, "I can't this time." What determines whether those words function as an actual limit is what happens the next time the same request is made. If the answer is quietly reversed under enough pressure, enough guilt, or enough charm, then no boundary was ever established. What existed instead was a soft suggestion that the other party learned, through direct experience, could be renegotiated. People do not consciously catalog this information, but their behavior reveals that they have learned it perfectly. They do not test your limits with strangers. They test them precisely with the people whose limits have folded before. There is a common misconception that the healthiest relationships are the ones with the least conflict. The opposite is closer to true. Two people with genuinely separate interests, separate needs, and separate opinions will, with some regularity, collide. That collision is not dysfunction. It is evidence that both people are still fully present as individuals inside the relationship. When a relationship has gone unusually long without friction, the more accurate explanation is rarely compatibility. It is more often that one party has stopped bringing anything into the room that could generate friction in the first place, which means only one set of preferences is left standing, and the smoothness you have been reading as harmony is in fact the sound of your own needs no longer being spoken aloud. Pay close attention to the specific language people use when they compliment you, because compliments are rarely random. You are told you are reliable, you are told you are easy to work with, you are told the group would fall apart without you. Each of these statements, however warmly delivered, describes an output, not a person. None of them address who you are in a room where nothing is required of you. This is not affection. It is a performance review disguised as intimacy, and its function, whether anyone involved intends it consciously or not, is to reinforce the exact behavior that produced it, ensuring the supply continues without ever having to be directly requested again. Watch closely what happens the rare times you do say no. A relationship built on mutual respect absorbs an occasional refusal without incident, because both parties understand that a person's availability was never guaranteed in the first place. A relationship quietly organized around your usefulness reacts very differently. A small refusal produces cold distance, a sudden and specific recollection of past favors, an unspoken but perceptible shift in warmth. This is not hurt feelings in the ordinary sense. Hurt feelings come from disappointed affection. What you are witnessing here is closer to a system registering an interruption in a supply it had quietly come to depend on, and reacting to protect that supply rather than to repair the relationship. Examine how much you actually know about the interior life of the person in question, and then examine how much they know about yours. In relationships being quietly extracted from, this ratio is almost always lopsided. You will often know a great deal about their stresses, their history, their opinions, because listening well is itself a form of usefulness, and usefulness is exactly what is being harvested. But ask yourself honestly how much of what they know about your own life was something they actually asked about, versus something you offered because you assumed, incorrectly, that your turn to be known was eventually coming. The most reliable indicator is also the hardest to point to directly. It is the specific exhaustion that follows contact with this person, a tiredness disproportionate to whatever was actually asked of you, and one you have likely never been able to fully explain, even to yourself. This is what quiet extraction feels like from the inside. It rarely announces itself as a single dramatic event. It accumulates as a low, persistent hum of obligation that follows every interaction, a sense that something has been taken that cannot be named, weighed, or itemized, because what is being taken is not a favor. It is attention, patience, and the continuous, unpaid labor of being available. The instinct, once this pattern becomes visible, is to search for malice, because malice would at least make the situation legible. Malice is rare. What is common is a simple asymmetry of cost. For the person doing the taking, nothing about the arrangement has ever felt effortful, because you absorbed the effort on their behalf. A person who has never had to strain for something will not develop the internal alarm that would tell them the arrangement is unbalanced, because from their seat, nothing about it registers as unbalanced. It registers as normal, as simply how the relationship has always worked, and this is precisely what makes the pattern so durable. You are not dealing with a calculated strategy in most cases. You are dealing with the absence of any reason, ever, for the other person to notice what the relationship has been costing you. The most common response to sensing this imbalance is to give more, not less, in the unconscious hope that enough generosity will finally be recognized and reciprocated. This strategy fails with remarkable consistency, and it fails for a structural reason rather than a personal one. The imbalance was never about the quantity of what you gave. It was about the absence of any cost attached to your giving. Adding more supply to a demand that has never had to work for it does not create scarcity. It deepens the existing pattern, teaching the other party, again, that your ceiling can always be raised without consequence. Generosity offered into a system with no mechanism for noticing it is not virtue. It is simply absorbed. Once this becomes visible, there is a strong temptation to swing toward the opposite extreme, to keep score, to weaponize refusal, to manufacture the exact discomfort you have been made to feel. This impulse should be resisted, not out of moral obligation, but because it is structurally identical to the original problem. It keeps your behavior entirely organized around the other person's reaction. The more precise move is quieter and less satisfying in the short term. It is simply the cessation of what was never being valued, delivered without commentary, justification, or performance. What happens next becomes informative rather than dramatic. Some relationships adjust immediately once the free supply ends, revealing that the imbalance was circumstantial rather than structural. Others reveal, plainly, that nothing beneath the function was ever actually there to begin with. None of this requires you to become suspicious of everyone who has ever asked you for anything. Reciprocity is the normal texture of every functioning relationship, and most of the people in your life are not quietly extracting anything from you at all. What this requires is narrower and colder than general suspicion. It requires you to notice, specifically, where your availability has never once been tested, where your limits have never once held, and where the warmth you receive is calibrated precisely to your output rather than your presence. You will not solve this by explaining yourself to anyone, and you will not solve it by giving until you are finally seen. You will only see it clearly once you stop supplying the evidence that has, until now, made it so easy for everyone involved, including you, to look away.